Silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item tonight will be the Point of Pride Awards. Dr. Vetter.
I'd like to welcome Chief Communications Officer Anthony Johnson to present tonight's awards.
Hi, good evening. We have one Point of Pride award this evening. If I could have Coach Connie Castleman, along with her administrative team, Dr. Sanders and Mr. Mang, to please come forward. As she makes her way up, I will read her award. She was named the TSSAA 2023 District 5 Female Coach of the Year for the state of Tennessee. Coach Castleman is the coach of the Lady Hawks soccer team at Rossview High School. And on this one, I have a little personal note because I know Connie back when she was Connie Hansen. We went to college together. It's, 20 years ago? We started at, we won't count. Yeah, a long time ago, at Lambuth University, and she was a star athlete, and she was a leader both on the field and off the field at school, and I remember when she joined CMCSS being so excited to have her as a part of our community. So she is well loved by her players and by her students and by her peers, and so congratulations on your award.
Next item on the agenda is public participation or public conversation. We had no request to address the board this evening. So we'll move forward to approval of consent agenda. I have a motion from Mr. Garland, a second by Mr. Nelson to approve the consent agenda. All in favor? Please open the vote. Is everyone satisfied with your vote? Please close the vote. Motion passes 7-0. Next item is policy monitoring. Dr. Vetter.
Board members, please find in your board packet information on Executive Limitation 1, Global Executive Constraint. This executive limitation has one compliance expectation: to ensure the Director of Schools shall not cause or allow any practice, activity, decision, or organizational condition which is unlawful, unsafe, imprudent, or in violation of board policy. Appropriate measures have been taken to avoid violations of this policy during this reporting time. Specifically, independent financial audits verify actions were appropriate, lawful, and prudent. Also, there have been no federal and state complaints filed in which there has been a ruling against CMCSS. Finally, annual employee training is conducted in compliance with local, state, and federal laws and regulations. Chairman Griffey, this concludes Executive Limitation 1.
Thank you. Can I hear a motion to accept Executive Limitations 1 report? I have a motion from Mrs. Pace, a second from Mr. Patterson. Any discussion? Discussion is now closed. Please open the vote. Is everyone satisfied with your vote? Please close the vote. Motion passes 7-0. Next item is reports. I think it's Dr. Vetter again.
I'd like to welcome Chief Operations Officer Norm Brumbley to discuss the staff zoning recommendations for 24-25 school year.
Good evening, Board. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to talk about goal number 8, addressing school capacities. For the last 4 days, all of our attention has been on the relief efforts associated with the tornado. However, Kirkwood Elementary School construction continues, and we are approximately 40% complete and on track to open in August of 2024. So in accordance with Board Policy EL number 12, rezoning, we have begun a comprehensive process to identify attendance boundaries. As per EL 12, the process must include ensuring the equitable distribution of resources according to the learning needs of all students, involve key stakeholders in the process of establishing attendance line adjustments, and have approval of the board. We have once again engaged the services of a third-party vendor, RSP and Associates, someone we are familiar with. RSP and Associates has begun analyzing zoning boundary data, gathering feedback, and leading public engagement with key stakeholders, and synthesizing information to produce a viable plan for consideration. Tonight, you will hear from the CEO of RSP and Associates to present our initial 2024-2025 staff zoning recommendation. At this time, I would like to call Mr. Robert Schwartz of RSP and Associates to the podium.
Good evening. Glad to talk to you about this topic tonight. This has been a long time coming. You guys have worked with us before, so I don't need to talk to you in all of the detail that you're seeing in this presentation. So I'm going to hit some of these things kind of at a 100,000-foot view, enough for you to understand if you did not listen to the public input sessions that we've had over the last month. So the way I've kind of formulated what I'm going to talk to you about this evening is some baseline enrollment information, the process, and then what the recommendation is. So briefly on the process, you see this visual outlines of the different meetings that took place, whether they were with the admin team or the informal public sessions. Again, the whole focus was to get us to this point tonight to make way for what boundaries there would be in 24-25. But there's more that we've been working on that I'll talk about. If we go back in time to how you've done your redistricting with us before, we started back in 2021-22. We did your secondary analysis and zones. And then here we did the 22-23 enrollment analysis that then set the stage for the elementary zones that I'm going to present to you this evening. I thought it was interesting to look at 2 years ago what our enrollment forecasts were and how accurate they were at each of the levels. If you remember, we talk about things down to a planning area level, so a subdivision, mobile homes, apartments, duplexes. What are we generating with the number of students? So geography is always positioned. We have to understand what your past enrollment is, so you have a visual of what that is from 2015-16 to current. We've looked at what changes are with cohort changes over time, so as second graders move to third graders, 11th to 12th graders, you can see what some of those changes are that goes into our enrollment forecast. We had very many intensive meetings specifically with the city to understand your growth patterns, and so we created a map to understand how do we start to forecast future areas so that when we assign these elementary zones, we have the right number of kids, not too many, not too few. And so the green areas represented what was currently in activity, the yellow likely within the next 5 years, purple greater out towards 10 years. You can see how that amasses as we look at the type of developments on this particular page, whether it's mixed use, mobile home areas, single family, and whatnot. Along with other things like live birth data and demographic changes, that got us to what we see for enrollment forecast going out to 27, 28. So that was kind of our past enrollment. As we got into the process, We had some guiding principles, so think of this as the sandbox that we were trying to work within for the elementary zones. So each of these are important that we came back to make sure were we adhering to these guiding principles. We then had some prioritized boundary criteria from the executive leadership team that we were ultimately measuring every scenario that we created to make sure that we were not only hitting those guiding principles, but how is it weighing out with these prioritized boundary criteria. So the number one was demographic considerations, the second was projected enrollment building utilization, and the third was neighborhoods intact. Neighborhoods intact going back to how we define that with planning areas. So we had many tasks at hand. The first was with Kirkwood Elementary opening in 24-25. And then as we started looking at the way the zones would come into a potential with what I'm talking to you about this evening, we also became aware of some other land that you've purchased and what that would mean for a elementary building opening in 26-27. So you're getting a 2-for-1, really a long-range plan at your elementary zones. What we're presenting to you tonight sets the stage for 24-25, but then opens up for 26-27. So really a progressive look at what's happening in your community. So we started out with our existing situation. This map, what you see on here, there are some blue circles and then there are some red exclamation points. So the blue circles represent where the new facilities are going to be, and the red exclamation points are areas where we have too many students, and so we knew we needed to change those boundaries so that they would get within the capacity or programs or both that are being served in those buildings. So another way of looking at that visual, here the red dotted line represents the capacity for that building. When the solid color column is above that, there's too many kids in that particular zone. We had some different challenges that we were addressing. So I mentioned the two big things is 2 elementary buildings opening, but then some program changes that the district would be able to implement at Burt and St. B that allowed for some other changes in what you're seeing in these zones. And then we also wanted to make sure that the dual language at Barksdale would be able to increase with the enrollment that is changing and increasing to be able to better serve them. We also had all of these other metrics that you see in these smaller bullet points below the green box. So a lot of different things that when we started out on this journey, we didn't envision we were going to get into all of these things, but you really have a very robust plan that's taking into account a lot of different moving parts. What you'll also see in this final presentation is how things moved forward from the first administrative team meetings. And so you can see the first 3 and then our last 4 meetings, and then more importantly with the public inputs, some of the themes that we heard. So primarily transportation, and then we had areas that were along Old Trenton Road, and then we had some student enrollment at Rossview Elementary. Like, is there more kids that maybe should not be in the Rossview Elementary area? So as we looked at those inputs from the public survey, that kind of lent us to some of the different results. So major themes that we took from that survey are listed out in these bullet points. So again, the whole goal was use us with your data, work with your team to create something that we then took out to the public. We've heard from them, and then we've been able to make a few changes. Couldn't make all the changes, and even if you listen to those public inputs, I even mentioned we're probably not going to be able to make all the changes, but we're going to try to come back, look, is there a way that we can do this, knowing that anything we change could have a domino effect in how things may look in any particular year and for specific buildings. So overall, some of the visuals, infographics that I think help identify what's been happening in this plan. We're planning for the future enrollment growth. We're addressing some of the immediate challenges with capacities. We're establishing a zone for Kirkwood Elementary. We're repurposing for reprogramming at Burt and St. B. And then we also are allowing for the space to be available at Barksdale for the Spanish immersion program. And then it's a long-term plan because we've set the stage for something that could take place in 26, 27. Again, your two-year plan in this proposal. So some of the things that took place. So now we have some visuals. So in 24, 25, what you see on this particular visual, solid colors represents the zones that are being proposed in 24, 25. You will see a yellow and red dotted line that represents the existing boundary. So as you have Burt and St. B dissolved for other programming, you can see how that then transitioned into creating some of the zones that are in that core area near the Wilma Rudolph area. The bigger thing is on the east side of 24 with Kirkwood Elementary. Lots of discussion if you sat in on those public inputs with could we make Oakland larger, or could we have Kirkwood take more of what is currently Oakland. So we had some limitations. Remember, we have capacity of buildings, and that was our number 2 criteria. So we took as much as we could, knowing there's a lot of growth opportunity in Oakland and Kirkwood. We then transition into the 26-27, which is predominantly taking place on the north side of the district. We're not impacting any of the zones that were changing in 24-25. And I think that was a big thing as our team, and as we worked with your team, as we started to evolve, what did the numbers suggest? How are we fitting all the different metrics? Can we plan for something where kids don't have to change 1 year and then 2 years later they're changing to a different building? So that was kind of the goal in this 26-27. Again, then here we show a visual of how the proposed boundaries in 24-25 line up with the secondary. Again, we have all the metrics with data where you're able to see what the enrollments are projected to be when the boundary changes happen in 24-25 with Kirkwood opening, and then in 26-27 when elementary 26 opens. So you can see what the number of students would be, what that utilization is, and then that same visual graphic of how this relates to capacity, and then the bar with enrollments and how we're able to get the students fitting within the capacity of all the buildings. This other visual was important as we were trying to also perfect your system to get closer to a complete feeder, meaning that an elementary school would completely go to a middle school and then on into a high school. Can't get there. We started out our team as a framework. Is there a way that we can have the elementary buildings completely feed to the middle school, high school? Not possible with where the location of buildings are and or where students are located. But we do improve the situation. Right now we have 9 complete elementaries into the middle school, high school, secondary boundary. We increase that with this proposed solution to 13. We have the demographic analysis because, again, that was our number 1 criteria, was demographics, was do we make things similar or better than what they are now? And so the visual here where it's a cell shaded in orange, it increased by more than 5% from what it was in its current existence. And then the green is where it decreased by more than 5% from what it currently was. So again, very similar in each of these buildings with the changes. We then looked at the number of students that would be impacted by this boundary change going into the 24-25 school year. That's the top table. And then the bottom table is what would happen in 26-27. So again, giving you a sense of where kids are and who's going to be impacted. We had a lot of conversation in our last admin team about areas and as it relates to transportation, particularly on the Need More corridor, and where the new development is and how they may go to West Creek. Would it be easier for them to go to Pigsaw? Absolutely, but we don't have space there. So what we tried to create here was a visual for anyone that looks at this, that we really did try to look at some things that may make sense regionally, but we just don't have enough space in the buildings in some of these corridors. Again, just to help illustrate what that means. We then had a matrix table here for you to understand how things relate to each of the criteria as it is with the current zones and then with the proposed concept zones. So you get to see how that all relates. Which then gets back to the same thing that I'm saying. There's a lot of moving parts here with being able to establish what these zones are that positions the district not only for how you zone your elementary buildings, but the programmings that are going to take place. So this is the first step, the first read. I believe the next formal public hearing is January 4th, and then final approval on January 16th. So with that, I will yield back to the board for any questions or comments.
Mr. Mabry.
Currently, where's the public hearing going to happen? Is it going to happen here or at a school?
That is scheduled for January 2nd prior to the board meeting, and the location is,
Kirkwood High School, for those listening.
So everyone looking at the screen that says January 4th, it's January 2nd.
yes, it's January 2nd at Kirkwood.
There we go. Yes, it is going to be January 2nd at 6 p.m. at Kirkwood High School. And it is going to be where folks can sign up on the spot. And I believe, Mr. Nolan, you'll have to remind me, I think there's 30 slots to sign up to speak. But of course, we have been getting feedback in. And so we'll have that for you as well, that report for you all to be able to review. Elizabeth has been getting all of that information together. And so we'll have that on top of the public hearing.
Mr. Patterson.
Did you say January the 2nd?
You would think the communications person could work a microphone. Yes, January 2nd. That is when your regularly scheduled board meeting was. And so the public hearing will be held before that study session. And so there will be a public hearing that will close out. And then there will be, I believe, a brief study session if there's anything on the agenda. And then you'll have your formal meeting. I'm losing the date, but the 16th.
Okay, I'm looking at the January 4th then, formal public hearing.
That is incorrect on his slide, but we have it correct on the website and on the calendar and all those sorts of places. There's just a minor typo on this, and our apologies, we reviewed it and just didn't catch that.
Yeah, I'm easily confused. That's why, that was my question.
Yes, sir,
All right,
sorry.
Thank you.
Anyone else have comments or questions? Talk a little bit about your opt-out that you or the committee one is not recommending.
Say that again, the
There was a
opt-out.
slide in there that said your opt-out was not recommended.
Oh, so that would be like the grandfathering student options is not recommended, and that's something that I would push over to administration on maybe some reasoning behind that.
And I'm happy to address that, Norm, if you want to chime in. That's something that we looked at. There's multiple factors to the reason why we're not recommending. Obviously, that is something that, if you felt compelled, could change. The reason why we're not recommending an opt-out is because when we did the opt-out for middle school and high school, there was a pretty significant financial implication to being able to accommodate that. We did feel that for middle and high school, it's a little different. You've got some organized athletic teams, you've got after-school activities, and so we obviously know, and also coursework and things like that, specials. So we wanted to make sure that they had that opportunity at the high school level. At the elementary, Our curriculum is pretty much standardized across the board unless you're already in a school or program of choice. And so those students would not be impacted by the rezoning because they're already in that program of choice. In addition to that, we already have a process in place, a special transfer request process that goes through student services. And fifth grade is actually one of the indicators on there for continuity of education. So that is something the families could apply for through the special transfer request for continuity of education. But those reasons are really the reasons why we did not recommend to you all for an opt-out process for the elementary rezoning. And I'll just mention, ultimately our goal is to relieve capacities. And so with allowing an opt-out, we saw this happen. We're seeing it happen still today with the opt-out. We still have one high school that's over capacity because of the amount of opt-outs. And so our hope is that we know it's an adjustment and our principals are ready to bring in new students, to welcome them and get them encultured into the new school. But we want to relieve those capacities, and with having, I think, 8 schools on that list that are already there, any sort of opt-out would not give us any sort of instant relief. We also don't want to open a brand new elementary school and not have anybody there because they've opted out.
Anyone else? Mr. Patterson again.
Thank you. Thank you. To clarify my thinking, the presentation that you gave tonight, the total map that you gave tonight, that will be what will be presented to the board unless something were to change in the public hearings that we, the board, or whomever might decide would be a better route to go to. Is that my understanding?
That would be my understanding as well.
Okay, thank you.
No more questions, and we appreciate your report.
Right, thank you.
Next item, comments by Fort Campbell School Liaison Officer. I almost said I didn't see you.
I know, I look a little rough today. We've been busy on post. Good evening, Dr. Lunavetta and school board members. My name is Karen Watkins-Juve, and I'm the school liaison officer from Fort Campbell. And my counterpart, Ms. Garrett, and I, we completed our first half of our school visits this year, and we appreciate the principals, the counselors, and all the other administrators who were very welcoming us into their schools. We look forward to being of service in the coming year, and I would just like to tell everyone happy holidays.
Thank you. CMCEA President. I know I do not see her. PET Representative. I guess if we moved that poll, it would fall, wouldn't it? Yeah. Yes.
I know, some of you I never can see during the meeting either.
No, I can see you.
Well, good evening, school board members and Dr. Lunavetta. As you can see, this is not my usual attire, so I'm looking around the room at some of your personnel here, and I'm sure there are other people who've been out doing things that I've been doing today. Been down on the farm, delivering supplies, fuel bags, and Christmas meals. So this week, we were expecting to begin the holiday season and celebrate the end of the semester. Little did we know that many of our families across the district would be sifting through the remains of what is left of their homes. It has truly been inspiring to witness the outpouring of support the community has shown to families who have lost everything. Donations have poured in, so much so that it is becoming difficult to store everything until it is needed. So as we navigate the next few weeks of cleanup and rebuilding, families will need more than just material items. Millions of dollars will be needed to rebuild, but let me remind you of all those things that are more important and cost nothing. Holding a hand, giving a hug, encouraging words, smiles, working side by side, sitting with someone, taking a walk, sharing similar stories, promising to come back tomorrow, shedding tears together. And as I wrote this last night, I thought, that sounds familiar. I think that's what educators do every day anyway. So as I've reminded you throughout this year to sit at the educators' table and have conversations with teachers, all of the above suggestions tell us that we must now sit at the families' table. That is where we will hear what is needed to get families and students back on their feet. These strategies do not require a budget line item and cost no money, but they are priceless. This will bring us insight as to what next steps are needed for healthy families and students. So thank you all, the school district personnel, everyone, and all the help that you've been doing this week, providing support to families. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments by county commissioners? Well rehearsed. Comments by board members? It's lighting up quickly. Jimmy Garland.
Now I'd like to thank all of you for the work that you do every day, especially the work that you've done this week. You know, that shows that CMCSS have a heart, not only for the classroom, but for this community. Some people are going through a lot, and some are not going through anything. But when people call and check on me, and I've had people call from all over place checking on my family, and I tell them that my family is doing fine, but make sure that you pray for the citizens around me, the children that don't have a home, and those that lost everything. But again, I'd like to thank each of you for the work that you put in. I thank you for your dedication and your commitment, because without that, CMCSS would not be CMCSS. And to the teachers, I thank them also for stepping up, because, you know, they could have sat back, but they decided to step up just like they do for 9 months out of the year. And then the other 3, when they are off on vacation, they are still stepping up. Again, thank you for what you do. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we'll see you in January.
Mr. Mabry.
This week, with the tornado disaster, I've just seen so much of what's great about our community, and I just want to give a shout out and thank you to our Clarksville Police Department, our Sheriff's Department. I've interacted with so many SROs this week, and they are amazing. Our Fire Department, EMS, State Troopers, both our mayors. For those who don't know, so much of the effort has been happening at Mosaic Church, where I pastor at, and so I've had all these interactions. But both mayors were on site. Congressman Mark Green, Representative Ronnie Glenn, Representative Jeff Burkhart, State Senator Bill Powers. So many bus drivers coming through, bringing people onto work sites. Multiple county commissioners. We've seen many local businesses pour out support. Lots of efforts over West Creek High School, or elementary school, I apologize, and Northeast High School, all the efforts there. I know Dr. Luna Vetter will probably share something about that. And then also Dr. Luna Vetter, this week, her and I have bounced back and forth with conversations, making sure that each site is taken care of, and I appreciate her partnership in that this week, and all that CMCSS has done for our community this week. I've had a front row seeing everything this week, and it's been amazing. We've had thousands of volunteers come through. At this point at Mosaic, I would say we're close to 2,000 volunteers have come through. Helping people, their houses being displaced, destroyed, going in, bringing hope. $500,000 of supplies have, at this point, probably been donated that I'm aware of. 5,000 meals, I believe, have been given out to people in need. And I was told that we, in one day, did 2 weeks worth of work in one day, and that we're 2 weeks ahead of surrounding counties because of our community and them coming together. I was talking to a county commissioner today, and he said this is the best of our community coming together. You know, there may be little things that we disagree on other parts of the time, but man, we can come together as a community to see our brothers and sisters, those who are hurting, and make sure that they are provided for. And I'm just blown away by the response. And I'm just so thankful to be a part of this community. I'm thankful for our school system and everyone I just said today. So I just want to say thank you to everybody.
Mr. Patterson.
Thank you. I'm not as elegant as Mr. Garland and Mr. Mayberry, but kudos to everything that they said. But I just want to, that where we're close here, that I certainly like to give a thanks to all the CMC SS employees and workers for what they've done and put out. And of course, we appreciate everybody without being repetitious, and it's just a great community and a great feeling.
Any other comments, board members? Ms. Pace.
I just want to tack on to what the others have already reiterated, that it's just so heartbreaking to see the enormity of Saturday's destruction. Things leveled in just split seconds, but have changed people's lives forever. But it's so heartwarming to witness the heartfelt, compassionate responses from the community, from sincere souls, not seeking recognition or reimbursement, but just from the goodness of their heart. And Clarksville certainly has honorably represented the title of volunteer state. It's just so touching and so grateful to live in a community like this.
Any other comments for board members? Ms. Berry.
I just want to say we've seen kindness at its best. And to see so many hurting children and adults at Northeast High School just lets me know the importance of us being kind at all times. Because it's kindness that's going to help us to get through the storms of life. People are so appreciative. And I have to say the storm came within 2 football fields of my home. And we were blessed not to be affected. But right around the corner, there are people who don't have a home anymore. They'll have to be demolished. And I want to say that it's going to be kindness that's going to get them through. And oh, the satisfaction of being kind to another. And let us continue to try to perform an act of kindness every day, not just in the storms, because people really do need to be encouraged. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson.
First, I just got to start off by thanking God because on Saturday I ran into a situation I'd never been through before, and where I was in the middle of the tornado. It came right on top of my vehicle with my granddaughters along with me, and the only thing I could do was call on God at that point in time, and I just want to thank Him for sparing our lives because we were right in the middle of the tornado. I also wanted to thank God that it wasn't much worse. It was bad enough as it was, but it could have been a lot worse. And thank Him for those lives that were spared, and that, you know, there are still people who have their lives and they haven't transitioned on. Just thank the community. We've had tremendous help in my neighborhood. We've been getting out, helping neighbors, and just helping the recovery effort. And, you know, had lots of people reach out and been able to support lots of people. So I just thank God for the community and the caring hearts that are there. So that's all I'd like to share. Thank you.
I'm going to echo just a little bit. Our city and county has experienced a tremendous tragic event over the weekend that caused people to lose their homes, lose their businesses, many to lose their jobs, and it will take a while for us to fully recover. But I could not be prouder of the way that our leadership team and our director has stepped up, went to work, made a commitment to have our children safe, our staff safe, get things back intact and back in place so that after the first of the year, they can have some normalcy of their life and be back to what they can do and get used to and learn again, and take their mind off of this. I could not be prouder of the community as a whole. Our first responders, our sheriffs, our fire departments, our ambulance people, the way that they have reacted and moved forward, and the citizens themselves. So many have dropped what they were doing and went to help their neighbors. So many that the county actually had to ask for a break because so many volunteers were showing up to help. They didn't have enough trucks and employees to haul the debris away. It says a lot for our community, and it says a lot from what we gained in strength from the tragic loss that we have had. I don't want to leave without saying that throughout this tragic time, we have risen up as a community and a system like the Phoenix to overcome her troubles. And we will overcome them and have things back to normal soon. Appreciate the churches. Many of the churches, as Aaron mentioned, have opened up. Mosaic has went far and beyond, but many, many other churches have opened their doors for people to come in and stay. I've seen people opening their houses, rental companies opening apartments and empty houses for people to come and stay in that have been affected by this. Things you just don't see anywhere else in America. And people sometimes wonder why people want to come to Clarksville. There's no question. It's a great place to be, filled with great people who want to help each other and do the right thing when things aren't right. I want to end by saying Merry Christmas to everyone and hope that everyone has a wonderful Christmas and a good New Year and spends plenty of time with your family and those loved ones that you never know when you may see again. Thank you. Dr. Vetter, comments by Director.
I would just like to reiterate a huge thank you to the senior leadership team and the whole team who on Saturday just really stepped up and immediately started putting things in place and rapidly responding and pivoting. And we went from option A to B to C until we figured out what would finally work, and we landed at Northeast High School as a shelter. And I promise you, all those people you've already seen in this room have put in more than their 40 hours already this week and continue to commit to bringing Santa and everything else to that shelter the rest of the week to bring some smiles to those kids' face. But we actually went ahead and recorded something today that I would like to share because, to be quite frank, I didn't know if I would have the emotion or the energy to say much tonight. So if our technology team could please play the video. On Saturday, December 9th, this community experienced devastation like many of us had never experienced before. The magnitude of what occurred is still being realized today.
And while many families lost their homes and possessions, we also lost precious souls on that day. To the family of Arlen Cody and the entire West Creek Coyote community, our hearts and our prayers are with you. To the families of Donna Allen and Stephen Hayes, our entire community is with you during this tragedy.
We began seeing pictures already on Saturday evening, but on daybreak on Sunday morning, coming out and seeing the magnitude and devastation that occurred in this neighborhood and in our community, as we began walking through and seeing people's homes and lives that will never be the same. To the families of everyone in CMCSS and the community as a whole, we are here to send you our love and support and know that we will be with you.
The survivors of this storm will not just need our support over the holiday season. They will need our support for the weeks and months to come. We have been so touched by the outpouring support from this community. From the volunteers that came out in thousands to help families pick up the pieces of their homes, to those who are helping us at the Northeast Shelter and the other shelters across the community, collecting donations, ensuring people have warm meals and places to stay at night. Thank you. We are showing the world that Clarksville-Montgomery County is the strongest community.
If there has been any positive that has come of this tragedy, it would be the outpouring of support from our CMCSS employees who are reaching out to their students. They are contacting every family and every student to make sure that our kids are safe and to see what they need. In our community, at the Northeast Shelter, when we have needed anything, when I reach out, if it's hot food, whatever the request has been, It has shown up plus some. I cannot begin to express enough gratitude to our community to make sure that we are being taken care of. As a school system and as a community, we will rebuild together. We will heal together. We will be here to support one another. To our employees who have shown up, even without being asked, and said, where can we help? How can we respond? Everything from helping to serve meals, to helping clean up debris, to being there to serve others. Thank you for what you've done. Merry Christmas and happy holidays.
This meeting's adjourned.